Let's get a different perspective on this now, shall we? Ajmal Masroor is an imam based in London and a former director of Communities in Action. Ajmal, good evening. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, good evening.
Good to speak to you tonight. Now, let's just go back a couple of steps here, if you like, with what was said. Is suggesting that Sadiq Khan is controlled by Islamists, do you think that is Islamophobic, or do you think it's clumsy, as Lee Anderson himself described it?
Would it be okay if I said all our politicians are controlled by the Jewish communities? That would be seen as an anti-Semitic trope, and it would not be accepted as an acceptable statement to make. Similarly, why would we apply a different definition when it comes to Muslims or Islam for that matter? Why would Sadiq Khan, just because he's a Muslim, be lambasted for being a Muslim, number one? Number two, there is an assumption, a suspicion, that just because he's a Muslim, he would be opening the doors to all Muslims to come and control him. I think that's not only racist, but it's just damn right outrageous to even suggest something like that. That's very insulting, deeply offensive. I'm feeling offended for Sadiq Khan. I don't know how he's feeling. And of course, it doesn't leave the rest of us in London feeling very happy and welcome. We're being othered, we're being pushed outside, and we're being told, you don't belong in the UK. You're the outsider trying to get inside. So when will we ever see British communities actually accepting, especially the Tory party, accepting that Islam and the Muslim community have a major role to play and have played a role in developing and shaping Western civilization as a whole, as well as Britain?
And I suppose to add to what you're saying, you may have seen some comments tonight by the former Minister for London, Paul Scully, talking about certain no-go areas in different parts of the UK, not just in London. Actually, it's worth saying, Ajmal, he also mentioned parts of Birmingham as well. What do you make of that idea of no-go areas? And of course, he wasn't being specific about a certain religion. He was saying because of immigration, that some areas have become no-go areas. And of course, it's received an enormous backlash. What do you make when you hear comments like that?
I don't understand it myself. What does it mean to have a no-go area in the UK? I'm always saying our police officers, our emergency services, ambulance, fire brigade, and other emergency services can't go there. Are we saying that you can't walk through or cycle through?
Oh, I think that's the suggestion. I think that's the suggestion. The suggestion is that some people feel as if they can't go to those areas because they'd be unsafe.
Well, some people feel they can't go through certain areas. It's no different to somebody saying, I see a black man walking behind me, I feel threatened. That's racist. That's absolute bigotry at its worst or best as we can describe. So to suggest one, I'd love to know the area because I would walk into that area myself. I haven't yet come across a single area in the UK that is a no-go area. Sometimes, would you believe, Oxford Street becomes a no-go area when it's too many people. Sometimes Piccadilly Circus becomes a no-go area when people have been drinking too much. And sometimes Tottenham, for example, my neighbouring area, becomes a no-go area and football hooligans are coming out of their matches. That doesn't stop me from cycling through. That doesn't stop me from going about my daily business. So for this particular MP to suggest something like that, it's not outrageous. It's not only irrational. I think they're fueling the fire of hatred. And I don't like this. It's not acceptable.
Ajmal, can we talk more widely about what's going on with the election and the vote? I mean, you probably heard Lucy there talking about the Rochdale by-election that's happening this week, where people have a limited choice, but of course there's no official Labour candidate standing there. But there was this poll, wasn't there, that backing for Labour from the Muslim community had fallen from, I think it was 86% to 60% since the 2019 election. That was a Survation poll earlier this month. I think Labour's Muslim network actually commissioned it, and it suggested it was a crisis point for the party's usually strong popularity among Muslim voters. Do you feel like that's still the case, or do you feel like Keir Starmer has begun to turn the tide with that?
He has unraveled the entire party, from party where Muslim votes were taken for granted. Muslims did not vote for anybody. Because remember, it's a very natural home for immigrants. social justice, issues of equality and fairness is always at the forefront of our conversation, or has been for the Labour Party. And most importantly, immigrants found home. Many early elections saw thousands of local councillors from minority ethnic groups becoming elected and involved. Now, I think current leader Keir Starmer has torn up all of those amazing achievements just because of his, I don't know what, but blind support to Israeli atrocities. I mean, look, there is a difference between saying we want peace, we want the end of hostility, but to suggest that Israel actually can close off electricity, water, food, and gas, that's a war crime. And for him to suggest that, especially when he's a human rights lawyer, I think he lost all credibility. And if you are asking me as a community activist, as an imam, as somebody who travels up and down the country, I will be speaking from the top of my voice. Don't vote for Labour in the next election. In fact, voting for Labour would be, in my view, a moral abomination.
So, I mean, of course, he has rowed back on those comments that I think he made
about
now. 6 weeks. But he has rowed back and then, of course, and drove the vote in Parliament last week to suggest that we should have a ceasefire. But can I ask, where does that leave many in the Muslim community when it comes to a vote in any election? So if they're not voting for Labour, where are they going?
Well, they're certainly not going to be voting for the Conservative Party, because the Conservative Party has never been for, and now with all this saga we know from Boris Johnson to Liz Truss to even the London mayoral candidate from the Tory party, Zach Goldsmith, all of them have demonstrated deep-seated hatred of Muslim and Islam, or Islamophobic rhetoric that they've been throwing around. So Muslims won't be voting for Conservative Party for sure. But they will not be voting for the Lib Dems in large number. They're not going to be voting for the Labour Party. The only way forward for Muslim community and anyone with conscience, I believe, is that they should be voting for independent candidates who are supporting global issues as well as local issues, consistently based on democracy, rule of law, fairness and justice for all people.
Just because we're running out of time, just very briefly, where does that leave Sadiq Khan in the London mayor race, do you think?
I don't know what to predict for Sadiq Khan. We don't have much of a choice when it comes to London mayoral election. We don't have an independent candidate that is credible enough. We don't have a Tory candidate that we can trust. We don't have a Lib Dem candidate that we can rely on. Probably Sadiq Khan will get away with his particular seat, but at a parliamentary election, I believe Muslim community will be voting with their feet, and they will say to the Labour Party, especially Keir Starmer, you go and support, and you're the enabler of genocide for the Palestinians. We're not giving you our vote.
Okay, Ajmal, thank you for your time. I'm sure that if Sir Keir Starmer was here tonight, he would say that the party position has changed, and he has, of course, recently called for that ceasefire on condition that there is release of the hostages too. But Ajmal, it's good to speak to you. Ajmal Masroor there.